Hello everyone, and welcome to the iSpring Solutions webinar and iSpring Solutions webinar series. And I'm glad to announce that this is our last session, last episode out of the whole series, which contains 10 webinars. My name is Paulina, I'm a community manager, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. And as a speaker, we have our very own expert, Michael Shiashi. Hi Michael, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How are you, Paulina?
I'm great. I'm very excited and kind of sad that this is our last session, but I would like to thank all of you guys who have been with us through the whole series, and I would like to thank all of you who have just joined. And I think that since this series has been working pretty well for all our attendees, we will be thinking for bringing together something like this, but maybe modified to you guys sometime next year. All right, so today we will be talking about final thoughts, tips, and examples of how you can push your content further and basically going over the whole series and just thinking what we have learned through it. And speaking about what we have learned, I would like to announce that you guys can win an online consultation with Michael Shiashi and ask any questions you might have regarding your e-learning project or maybe e-learning in general or something you've been thinking about recently that you would like to implement in your project and so on. And in order to do so, yes, we are providing 30, 45, and 60-minute online consultation. And in order to get it, you just simply need to answer this question. What did you learn during this webinar series? And post your answer under the main blog post for all our webinars. And I have shared the link in the chat box, in the question box, and you should be able to see right now. And after that, just 3 comments with most likes will receive this online consultation. So yeah, just get your family, friends, colleagues to vote for your comment, and we will announce the winner on November 1st at the beginning of our webinar. So guys, make sure to reserve your spot to find out who is the winner. And of course, we're going to have a discussion as always in the chat section in the question box, and you may find it on the right side of your GoToWebinar panel. So guys, if you have any questions for Michael, for me, or just regular questions about iSpring, don't forget to submit them and we will definitely take care of them during our webinar. Okay, I think that's it on my end. So Michael, let me please pass the presenter rights to you.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's a lot of information, and I appreciate you sharing that. So I was going to jokingly say I really hope that I'm the winner so that I can get my own consultation. So, but seriously, everyone, so make sure that you use the link and, again, have people, your friends, someone vote up. That'll be very exciting November 1st. So, Paulina, to confirm, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. Fantastic. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today and all the series. We really appreciate it. So, and thank you to iSpring for hosting this fantastic series and having me. I appreciate it. So as you can see today, we're going to really sum up and celebrate where we've been and also see some showcased ideas about what to do to push the content further using iSpring. So of course, again, the obligatory background about me. My name is Michael Shiashi. I'm a technologist at Alternative Media. I have a bachelor's in film, a bachelor's in Native Studies. I'm Native American, a member of the Caddo tribe of Oklahoma. I have an MFA in 3D modeling. I've been working in IT and e-learning for 20 plus years, and I continually try to put innovation in anything I do. So, as mentioned, today is all about celebration. It's all about you. So our conversation and tone will be casual. As you can see, I have my t-shirt on today to celebrate that. So be sure to use the chat window, talk with each other, share ideas. We'll have a few poll questions as we go up. You can also tweet ideas, questions, what have you, to myself at mass_edev or at iSpring Pro. But the most important part is we discuss. So let's take a 50,000-foot view of where we've been. And so we have 10 weeks. This is the final week. We will look at this more in depth, but as you can see, we've covered a lot of topics stemming from planning and preparation to what roles and stakeholders and how to manage those expectations, looking at creating narration and on-screen text, editing it, capturing it, recording it, making sure that we have quizzes lined up. We'll cover all this in a moment, but today we're going to look at how we can push our content further. And within that, we're going to, of course, look at all the webinars and some highlights from them. We'll look at some really great products that are made from iSpring to give you ideas on what to do with your products in the future and your content. And then I'll share a few resources and places you can go for more research, including professional groups here and there to explore professionals in the industry to get ideas from. And then, of course, we want to save time to make sure that you all have time to ask any questions you want so that we can explore ideas together. So let's get started. Let's take a look at the webinar as we've done through it. As I mentioned, week one was all about planning. And so we took a look at generally a content roadmap. This isn't a hard and fast rule, but generally speaking, the pipeline would be planning, making sure that we look at listing our goals. What is the goal of our learning? What's the purpose? Why are we doing this? Who are our audiences? Does it have to live on an LMS? Is it just a website? Are we going to store information on an LRS? And of course, thinking about as we plan, each and every one of these, including the UI and UX design and development, has to have its own time frame and padding within to make sure that we don't have scope creep or that it doesn't explode. And then we also took a look at a very great piece of research from the Chapman Alliance that really goes into levels 1, 2, and 3 of e-learning. And we normally talk about level 2, which is what we normally see. Level 1 would just be page turners, as I call them. Level 3 would be the extensive simulated environments or even games. But these are all the steps we talked about. This generated a lot of discussion. I was happy for that. It's out there on the web, and the link is available as well. We also, generally speaking, in week one, we took a look at things you need to consider before you even crack open PowerPoint. Again, who is the audience? What's the story? What device or platform does this need to go on, or should it go on? Looking at ways how we're going to wireframe, layout, and design. Do we have key players or individuals that we need to get on board with for our kickoff meetings? Graphic design people or SMEs, stakeholders? Will there be any roadblocks to consider? We also took a look at some other items that to be considered, getting assets, making sure we have copyrights for that, making sure we understand the human factor of roles and personalities, because that plays a large part in our projects, doesn't it? Not only what we're actually creating and doing, but the people we have to work with and manage expectations and understand. We want to make sure that we're not only testing our product, but that we have a group, hopefully a group of people that represent our learners. That we know what our target devices are, that we've considered things for accessibility, and we talked about that, and we will take another look at that in a moment. And again, we want to identify who's going to actually do what, like who's going to write the assessment questions and such. So that was week one. Let's take a brief look at week two. So we took a look at roles and what to expect. We defined we had a really good definition of what to expect with SMEs. They can be anything, and they're experts in their field. And even thinking about identifying key players, as I just mentioned, we need to identify the SMEs and what their expertise is just like you would for an asset resource, for a graphics person, to make sure you get what you need for your content from them. And that remember that we're SMEs as well, but that each and every one of these are key players and important to our success. So we also looked at managing expectation of both stakeholders, and many of us may have to juggle both the project management side of things, or at least our personal expectations of tasks of what we have to do, as well as instructional design and development. So our time is divided, and it sometimes feels like we're spinning plates and we have to keep them all spinning. It's not easy, but what we wanted to talk about and what I've continued to push home is that we need to have time. We need to understand that some things take time, and what's our plan B? What happens if we have someone out of town, or we have a SME that's taking longer than expected? How do we keep the project going no matter what? So, and that takes quite a bit of doing. And this week I also shared sort of a funny meme I created. So, what other people think, what my friends think I do, which is almost Matrix-like, what my mom or parents think I do, which is the old school sort of school marm type of atmosphere, which is, real instructor-led stuff. Some of us actually may do that. What I think I do is exploding ideas and minds, and of course what society thinks I do is actually just play solitaire or play games on my computer. But really, what we all do probably is wrangle cats as we herd cats, as we try to make sure that everything is put into place, and it takes a lot of resources and mental faculties to get that going. So we also, on week 2, pushed home the idea of being an advocate for our learner, making sure that we're going back and using the stories that we've created. What is my learner's story? And knowing the demographics of the learner and letting that serve as the foundation for everything we do. Does it make sense for the learner? Does the content fit? And just think about what I, as the developer or learner, would I want to sit down and take this myself? And so that's key as well. And so finally, we took a look at some really great interactions from iSpring, the flipbook, the timeline, the FAQ, and other items that you can use. Again, just kind of giving ideas what to do, when you have a lot of content and some interactive ways to do so. So week 3, we took a look at creating on-screen text and narration. We took a look at some studies on how much text to include, how much not to include, how to distill things down. We also took a look about how to write for speaking. We had some tips included with that. Keeping things simple, making sure that if you have a script you've written for a narrator, that you make sure that you don't use too many acronyms, or if you do, you explain what those are to the person speaking. You use transitional phrasing to make it more interesting. Examples include, okay, now that we've done this, or let's examine this, or let's shift gears, those type of transitional phrasings in your audio so that people can hear it. And then make sure that you always understand that rewrites will happen, that you get input from others to see how it's going, see how things sound. You've read it out loud, and so those things. So let's go back. We also took a look at, how much narration actually needs to go into your content. Of course, we don't want to narrate every single word that's on screen. We want to make sure that we understand sometimes, because of accessibility reasons or other reasons, that the audio may need to be muted or turned all the way down. So I provided a really great article on how to assess that and some tips on how to make sure you have enough audio. And then I also provided a handout from Christy Tucker that was provided at the Learning Solutions Conference in 2017, which is a PDF that you can download the links there, which is really sort of a high level of what to consider. Here's a checklist. Have you done this or that? So that was week 3 and about audio. And so then, of course, the next week in week 4, we talked about voice talent and recording audio and video. We took a quick idea, and we explored whether or not we should use ourselves or in-house talent or outsource our voiceover talent. So there's some considerations to do with that. What talent pool do you have available? Are they experienced? Does it sound well? Can this person inflect? Even if you go outsourcing, can they provide some sort of character or imbued excitement within their speaking or in their voiceover work? And some of us just straight up have to deal with budget, so we can't afford it. So we have to consider that. Whether you're doing it yourself or having someone else do it, we talked about the basics of what to do for mic quality when recording, making sure that you can get the best quality mic for the amount of budget you have. We provided some guides that are available on how to select the best over mic. We also talked about using iSpring to edit and record audio and video, trimming audio, making sure that we know how to use it. We looked at some live examples of how to do so, and the same thing with video, adding it inside, adjusting the timings and the animations with that video and such, and editing the audio of that video. So quite a bit to look at this week in the week 4 as we celebrate it. And we also looked at using PowerPoint's built-in animations and transitions, timing these with audio and or other interactions, understanding how to do so, where it's located, and that we can even possibly, and I'll show this later, make this a standalone animation or vignette to be used. And again, whether you do that or whether you use just the animations, all this comes out really well in the iSpring Publish. So we took a look at that. Week 5 was just as integrated and a lot of information. So we took a look at the 3-stage model of learning based on some articles out at Learning Solutions Magazine, what that meant for short-term memory, long-term memory, what was best as far as quizzing and assessments. The answer, of course, is it depends. We took a look at Patty Shank's common mistakes of what to avoid. Make sure that you take time to write the assessments. Make sure you have time to review. Make sure that it has something to do with your content. And again, just taking time to make sure that you avoid some mistakes that are usual. So also pulled some information from the professional Sam Rogers on how to do multiple choice. This is available on LinkedIn on his article. So making sure that the questions fit the learning objectives. Remember, those are ones we identified in week 1 as we laid out the pipeline or process for our content. Making sure that you take your time and write really good questions, be succinct, making sure that you're not too wordy or you're just wordy enough, and make sure that you have time to develop these questions, maybe even before the content. In this article, Sam argues that you should even take as much time or maybe more to write the questions themselves than the content. So I leave it up to you as you read it, but certainly I think that the quiz questions are vastly important, and especially if they're going to support and augment what you've done in your content, they need to be well written, and you need to make sure you've taken enough time in the development process to do so. This week we took a quick look at how to do many of the quiz types. We created some multiple choice, true, false, some open-ended fill in the blank, and others. We did a live session on how to do each. We had a lot of good comments. We also looked at how to enhance quiz questions in iSpring using audio, video, making sure that we understand how to branch the feedback given a learner's answer, and that we made sure that we could also branch in the slide view as well. So when we looked at the slide view within the quizzes, we wanted to make sure that we looked at layout and themes to make sure that each quiz question looked fantastic, and that it had a cohesive look and feel. And as well, this is the week where we reminded everyone that you can share, as you're authoring the quiz questions, you can share the question pool back and forth using a Microsoft Excel template or Quizmaker template. You can share these back and forth. I provided the link of that Excel document and kind of showed you how it was to import and export. So those were all in week 5. So week 6, we talked about how to make sure interactivity and engagement were present in your content. And so we looked at the difference between, remember that interactivity is someone is actually doing something, and engagement has more to do with the intrinsic value or the valuation system of your learner. And we want to push home the notion that it's important that we try both. And again, one solution does not fit all. Everyone is different. And in this article from Mark Rosenberg, you can see that, and it gives a really good layout of maybe some ways we can make learning more interactive. Because it always comes up when we talk about interactivity and engagement. We wanted to talk about what gamification was and was not, the differences between gamification, gameful design, serious games, and games. Andrew Hughes of Designing Digitally has a great article and video available at the iSpring website. I suggest you go out and take a look at it, wherein he lays out some very concrete and real-world examples of what that includes and doesn't. So that was a very good and informational setting. So we also looked at what I talk about as why I propose branching whenever we create content, and what that means based on my own ideas as a young person of the Choose Your Own Adventure book series, which basically was allowing you to create your own narrative of a story, or at least control the pathway that you went down. The whole point of why I keep bringing this up is many of us remember those books, and have fond memories, but we want to make sure that our learners experience something that they feel they have some bandwidth in, they have some buy-in to. And so we want to recreate that. In order to do so, we have to switch our mindset from a linear slide-by-slide page turning of one of possibilities. We start at one place, it can go several places. Where does that go? Going back and living upon itself and branching out. And then on that same token, I went in and used the Talkmaster to present sort of a choose your own e-venture of a demonstration of using the power of 3. Basically, I created 3 different answers, and each of those answers had 3 different types or pathways you could go down. In this respect, we had to consider whether the learner could start completely over, whether that at the end, if it was, pass fail, if they just went to a specific place in the slide structure or in the content. Really, we could include things in the Talkmaster that included emotional feedback, whether or not the interaction had made the imaginary virtual participant happy, sad, whatever it is. But we utilized within that framework the content library inside iSpring. So that was the demonstration we did. And then I'll show this a little bit later when we look at concrete examples, what I have done to create a customized FAQ based on Ash versus Evil Dead. I'll get into that in a moment, but basically we took another look at that this week. So going right into week 7, I know, hang in everyone, we're almost there. But this was a very cool week that we discussed why we're creating UI and UX. And so we discussed the ways that they're important, that we can design something we think is perfect, but again, is it perfect for the learner or the user? And so the reason it is important is it reduces the frustration on the part of the learner. It makes us very credible, or our content seem very credible or authoritative. And we have to consider the UI and UX and how to design correctly early in the process, because a lot of testing has to be done. We looked at some best UX practices and defined both user experience and user interface. Again, it takes a lot of planning. We have to ask, shouldn't necessarily ask how, but more, how we should do it. We should never assume. We need to make sure that things are consistent. If we have a content that needs to have the same look and feel, or many of you have to be on brand if you have a brand that you need to be considered, including colors and such. Make sure that we look for daily life for inspiration, and that we continue to look to make things better. Within this milieu, we also looked at ways to increase our learning and make it better using font and typography. There's a couple of really great articles out there by Mr. Papas and Ms. Gutierrez about how to make things. Again, using fewer than 3 paragraphs or 3 different types of font is best, meaning don't just go crazy with your font types and use 7 different ones on one slide. And these are just, rules of thumb. These are not hard and fast rules. Make sure that your fonts are ones that are legible, not exotic fonts. Make sure that you keep a size consistent, somewhere between 12 and 16, and that also that you use a body, the body of whatever text it is, slide per slide, not more than 40%. Making sure that each contrast of font type has is example of contrast. So a lot of this is done for you if you check out iSpring's library using the slide templates. These are some really great ways to get started, and you see that they have ways to lay out both imagery, iconography, as well as standard font type and layout that follows many of these same rules that were laid out in the articles. So I encourage you all to check that out. And then, of course, finally, as you begin testing, before you publish, you need to make sure that you understand what the actual player that the user will experience and how that interface works or doesn't work. We looked at a live example of how to customize that, what to do with it, and no amount of showing you beats out just going in and experimenting and make sure that works for your learner or user. So that brings us into week 8. Week 8, we really dug deep and dug our heels into what the web accessibility means, or accessibility standards, for the differences between standard section 508 here in the US and WCAG 2.0 AA standards, which is more of a global standard. Now that section 508 has become more conformant to WCAG 2.0, we usually focus on that. I provided some links about how to understand the differences on my blog. We also took a look about Microsoft's suggestions on how to just make your PowerPoint accessible. And again, that's not for necessarily e-learning content, but just going down through the line by line of making sure how to make your PowerPoint accessible, even if you share it among other people. So hold on just a second. All right, everyone. Sorry, I had the doorbell ring, and of course the dogs responded saying, "Danger, there's a stranger here." So anyway, so that being said, we had accessibility laid out by Microsoft. Hold on. My bad. All right, so there's a link available for you, and again, you can go through some of this, and Microsoft even allows some accessibility checkers to provide for you. Again, it's on that link. There are some other tools, and I lay out another blog post that I look and test some of these tools. Again, this is for after you publish. making sure that your content meets some of the WCAG 2.0 standards. Take a look at that. Again, there's some common core things we need to consider, such as contrast ratio for color. I gave the WebAIM color contrast checker that you can use to check your colors. Again, that would be the foreground color, the text itself versus the background color, whether it be slides or whatever it's in. It needs to have a specific ratio to make sure that it's visible and usable. And so we also took a look at ways to make sure your videos that need closed captions or text descriptions, what that means, how to do it, and we took a look at some ways to make that happen. We also took a look at ways to make sure that you make items ready for your content ready for mobile, and that includes making sure that you've got the right file size, that you haven't used these large images, that your links and buttons are clickable, and that you remember that videos work different in each and every device. So week 9, as you remember, this is last week, so we took a look at various ways to publish. We went through a lot of the different publishing options available. As you can see, there's a lot involved, including publishing for web, publishing to a regular LMS that you may have, or up to iSpring Cloud, or even to the iSpring Learn LMS as well. There was a lot of great discussion about this, about how to do various items. We looked at how to publish, for the web, being all the different tabs for the general tab, what includes the title, all the way to how to make sure that you optimize your media, say if you have LMS constraints, to make sure that the package you put out isn't too large, and also ways to set the SCORM or LRS standard, and this is all in the tabs that we went over. So we also took a look at how to publish to LMS, what that includes, then the general tab. Again, this is where you would choose your LMS type. You would add the course info. You would choose pass-fail. Again, it looks very similar to the web configurations. We also took an extensive look at publishing to iSpring Cloud, what that includes. It's fast and easy. It's a way to share files. Many of you are familiar with Dropbox or Box. Understand file sharing and understand the need of collaborative methods like this. So I wanted to alert everyone that you can do it from inside iSpring in the publish area. Same thing with publishing to iSpring Learn LMS. Those of you that have the account or use it know that it's very easy to publish your content directly from whatever you've just created up to the LMS. So that was a great conversation we had last week. So let's take a breath for everyone. So let's take a moment, Polina, and have our first poll question up. I'll go ahead and read it on screen while you post it. So which webinar, now that we've covered them all?
I'm sorry. Actually, I don't need to post it because I would like our audience to share their comments in the question box.
Fantastic. So yes, please do. So share this. So which webinar did you like the most, or which did you find most beneficial for the content you're creating or for your project? And please, if you can, specify why. So share those in chat and share which ones you really focused on. And again, I wanted just to have this moment to sort of celebrate with each other which you found most interesting. So are there any coming in, Polina?
Not yet. And while you guys are sharing your comments, I would like to also mention that all the links that Michael has been talking about will be available in one-page document that I will be uploading to iSpring Cloud and then sharing with you after the webinar, as well as the webinar recording and the presentation, Michael's presentation.
Fantastic, and thank you for sharing. So, and you'll notice that there are a lot of links today because again, we're going over all the information we've covered thus far, including a lot of those great articles, a lot of the how-tos and best practices. So you'll see a lot of links today, more so than maybe any of the other webinars. So be sure to check that out.
And we have some comments coming, so let me just read some of them. So the one where you covered Talkmaster, says Angela. And then Ashley says that this is my first one. Ellen says the one on branching, as we are considering that strongly for our training, and the recommendations on professional voiceovers. And then Francesca liked writing and layout webinar.
Fantastic. Those are great, and welcome to the first timer, by the way. So go ahead.
Right. And then Michael says, I found all of them dovetailed nicely. I attended this series as a way to have a general overview of e-learning development. All sessions were beneficial. Thank you for a great series.
That's fantastic. I'm chuckling to myself because I thought that person was going. I thought you were going to read out loud that that person only came to the webinar series to avoid another meeting. So that's great. That the person, that individual, liked this. So very cool.
Right.
Any others?
Yes, Karen says I'm very new to creating e-learning, so it all has been good for me. I think the one that made the most impression was maybe the one that demonstrated branching. It really highlighted how easy it is to do, not intimidating at all.
That's fantastic. So a lot of us have, and I agree with you all, the branching one, and I spent quite a bit of time, and I talk about this in other places. So the branching for me is really where it's at, because we all talk about, and again, it's that shift from slide to slide of page turners, but we really want to make sure that the branching allows our learners and users to have that individualized or seemingly experience. So very good.
And can I read just one last comment for now?
Please.
It's from Ron. To this point, this webinar. Having missed a couple of weeks along the way, and this webinar seemed to catch me up and identified my weak areas for review. So that's great. Thanks for sharing, Ron.
Great. And by the way, as we went through them, if you did find one that you like, I'm sure that you can go back and watch the webinar as well. They're available on the centralized link that you can go to. Is the same one, I believe, Paulina, where you can actually make comments. Is that correct? The one that
Yes. Yeah,
right.
sure. I will be sharing right now just one more time in the chat section, so you guys should be able to see it. And this is the link where you can share your comments and what you've learned during this webinar series and win the consultation with Michael Shiashi on e-learning matters. All right.
Fantastic. So that's great. So, and again, if you did see one you like, go ahead and check it out again. So let's go ahead and move on. And again, Paulina, jump back in if you see another comment we need to address, but please let's do this. So let's look at some really great ones that I like. And now that we've kind of had a coalesced view of what we've talked about thus far in the webinar series, I want to show you some ones that I really find that are worthwhile and engaging. So I will use this one. Let's go back. Sorry. I want to stop this for a moment and grab this link so that you can all see it. I will go to a live version of it here in my browser, and we will take a look at it. So this is one about branching. Again, based on the comments, this is, again, one we should consider. I'll go ahead and make this a full screen. Hold on. Okay. So here we go. So this is one that you have seen in the previous weeks. Hopefully I've made it large enough for you to see, but this has one that not only works with branching. Let me turn the audio down, everyone, sorry. All right, so as we go through it, we'll not only see ways that we can branch, but we also see triggers as rollover events. So I find this one very interesting. I think the person, an individual that presented this information, Mr. Guido Hornig, had a really great informational way to provide information. Again, each clickable object has a different pathway to go through, and it's got a little bit of interaction as far as rollovers and such. So this was a great way, and I've got the link in the slide for you to review. But again, a great way to look at possible branching. We'll go take another look at another one, the Space Shuttle demo, available for download if you'd like to play with it. And I include this one because I think it has a really great look and feel. It's clean. It uses a lot of the templates we've taken a look at. Again, this will have audio, so I will turn it down in a moment. So hold on. Let me turn this down. Space Shuttle Program. Okay, so there we go. So I'll click through a few of these slides, but notice this particular one has taken time to not only lay things out on the screen in a succinct manner, but also considered how the learner or user might use the actual player. If an outline view may be needed, if where the captions need to be included and that sort of things, your previous and next buttons and navigational items. In this case, I'm clicking on the outline just sort of at random intervals to sort of let you see each slide. Each slide has a little bit of variance, but it has a cohesive look and feel. I like this one because it's modern looking, it's clean, has a lot of things to explore, maybe some ways to consider presenting your information or your content. But again, it's got a really nice, clean look and feel. It's got a quiz section that you can go through. Again, everything, even including the quiz, maintains that consistent look and theme. So there are ways to do it. So going back to our demos, there's also, of course, the 3D book, and I'll show you what that looks like. This one's about the solar system. Again, these were created with iSpring, and I wanted to show these for various reasons. This one to showcase one of the interactions. Make sure that's the right one. Nope, that's the actual course, my bad. As you can see, there's a lot of ones here on the iSpring's website on the demos area, and we'll take a look at some of the others here in a moment. Here's the one I wanted to celebrate today. This is the 3D book about the solar system. Why I wanted to do this is because this is a pretty clean layout, and I'll kind of click through and let you see. Here you see I'm pulling the page. You can also click here. The learner can click and get a page by page layout. But again, you can flip through this as you would a normal magazine or page. This may be a way to consider presenting your information. Specifically, maybe many of you have created manuals or other information that you need to include and present to your learners to support or allow that learner to dig down into further, more detailed information. As you can see, in contrast to what we've created in eLearning and what we suggested, you can actually use more text. You can go above the 40% rule here. You don't have to, but you can. Again, because we have a different milieu, we have a different style. It's a magazine or book style. And so you can play with this and look at the design aspect. So that's available from iSpring as well. I wanted to take a look at that. Here's one I found rather interesting, and this is, I wanted to show it by its use of transitional, and visual interest in how it goes page to page or section to section. Again, these links will be available for you to explore on your own. This is the Y PowerPoint solution, and so we'll open this one large so you can see it. And so there's some audio with it. And so you see that we have transitions available, and that when we click on a certain area, I'll just kind of go left to right, the entire canvas or slide slides to the right as we transition. That would be handled inside PowerPoint's transitions. Let's click on one of the persons, and so we see that things happen. There are triggers involved. When you click on each of these, we can go back to the home slide. We can take a look at another section. But again, this is one way to sort of maybe get your creative juices flowing. Think about how you want to present information, how you want your learner to see them, how you're packaging it together. And again, just considerations on what may or may not work. So this one, again, used various transitions, animations, and other visual tricks in order to keep that interest going. Quite a nice little polished aspect, but these are also things you could do in iSpring and in PowerPoint as well. So, and then of course there's my example of a FAQ from using TalkMaster. Many of you mentioned the demonstrations we did with TalkMaster about how to create these branching scenarios, and this is a great way to do so. You can use, of course, the built-in content library wherein you have various individuals. This was part of a larger demo that I did for Demo Fest about a year and a half ago. And so there's a little bit of audio with it, but this particular one, there was a FAQ section created with the TalkMaster that you can see here. I used a custom background that matched the actual animation I created with it, and each of these branches off to a various branch way of going through. And it was tongue-in-cheek and sort of joking. Again, I allowed that consideration. Can you simply be done here, or can you restart? I wanted the learner to go back in and ask more questions if need be. Each of these has sort of a smart alecky remark based on this character about how it was created. And so it continues on. But each of these answers goes somewhere else. And you can see it can get kind of robust. So a lot of this is just to show you the possibilities. I have used a 3D character I created instead of stock photos or from the library. You can customize this inside TalkMaster, so it's a great way to consider sort of a new spin on how to do things. So And then I almost then let me move this up. Sorry. And then thankfully the good people at iSpring brought this one to mind, which I'll show you here. I'll just kind of go through the actual slideshow rather than the e-learning content. This is a really polished, high-level way to present an interactive way. This one will be available on the iSpring website at a later time. You see that there's a cohesive thematic look and feel, and a personalized setting of an individual that's a centralized character in this particular scenario. This one doesn't necessarily focus on branching, however, there's some information. There's a lot of great use of stock photographs as well as the content library. There's some slight interaction here in a moment. You'll see I click on each of these and something else comes up. It has a very subtle transition and animation in between. Things happen when you click on certain items. So it's a really great way to sort of see what's going on, how to do things. It's a way to consider presenting information and knowledge to your learners. Again, this might not fit your content, but really the point is here to showcase the ideas that we feel might spark some ideas on how to get you started, or if you do have a refresh coming up on some of your content, what you might need to do, or ways to attack that. So again, that'll be available later at the iSpring website. I wanted to check that out. So let's get back into it. So really, as you can see, what I focused on in these demos are ones that have really pushed that idea of the visual content, of not only just the information on slide or screen, but ones that have used triggers or animations or provided branching in a way that has some sort of, hopefully, engagement for the learner and had a slight level of interactivity. Many of these that you've seen have used the content library, which includes the background, the characters, the templates, the icons and such. But again, the point is that we want to make sure that the content fits what's best for the learner and that that shapes how we develop and create our content. So those are just items that I wanted to push home for you. So Paulina, let's do our second poll question, please.
Sure, just 1 second. Okay.
All right, so everyone, the poll is open. And so the question is, which of the examples sparked that we just shared? So which of those that we just shared sparked ideas for you or feel like they might spark some ideas for you? The Space Shuttle one, the 3D book, the Y PowerPoint, the Talkmaster FAQ, or I didn't include this one, the one I just showed that had the cooking example, how to make an omelet. So let me open up the polls on my side so I can kind of see. Looks like a lot of you like the solar system book and the Talkmaster. And so again, it looks like, you know, as we've seen in the discussion, at least today, there's a lot of interest on how to leverage Talkmaster to create a little bit more interactive ones. So for those of you that are voting on the 3D book, the solar system book, I find that interesting myself. We always look for ways, and again, you may remember in like week 2, as I just went through them, the refresh of what the iSpring interactions are, the timeline, the FAQ. So these interactions are available to create very easily in iSpring. So when we have information that the learner needs to dig down and drill down into deeper, I want to provide these ways that you could see other ways to present that information. So let's go ahead and close the polls, Paulina. Okay, so let me back up because I accidentally clicked and I have to pull my video out of the way. So this is where I want to take a look at some additional resources. Now again, I've covered several of these in weeks previous, but I did want to have this list available for everyone here. So again, as I go out and jokingly say I do my Google research, my research, there's a lot of places that keep coming up for their value in articles and information. The eLearning Guild is a great place to get information. The ATD, formerly ASTD, has a great selection of resources and articles, and even local meetups and local gatherings that you can be a part of, both on their website and I believe and there's LinkedIn groups as well. And of course the eLearning industry site, and all these links are included here. But I'm not necessarily saying one or any of these are better than the others. What I'm saying is as I continue to do all my research, these websites keep coming up with really great information. So check them out. And so I wanted to revisit again another resource I found very insightful from the How to UX Design for eLearning 10 Tips. Again, you saw this a moment ago, however, I wanted to bring it back up because there's a really detailed article about what to include, and it goes beyond just the user experience, and it goes into what that means. For instance, where you can get information and inspiration in your daily life and how to use that. So check out this resource if you can. As many of you know, lynda.com has always had really great resources. Check that out when you can. One I did include, which would still be in that same vein, is I've provided them. The iSpring website itself has oodles of information, and I provided those links as need be. Get on the iSpring website and search for it, and you'll find a lot of great answers, including a lot of great short how-to videos, even some 30 seconds and less. So in that vein, remember that lynda.com has a lot of specialized experts that come in and talk about font and typography. Check that out when you can. And even attending professional groups. I attend a daily chat with TLDC. Check that out. The link is available at tldc.us. Basically, for me, it's a way for us professionals in the e-learning industry to get together, discuss, cuss and discuss, and understand what's going on, and share ideas, and have daily infusion of ideas. So, any of you that are interested, there's a link. So, let's do another quick poll question, Polina. So, and again, as you mentioned, we don't have to put this up in the poll, but please answer in the chat. So, if you have other resources or groups or links, what are they? And share them with us. Again, I've only shared a little smattering here of some that keep coming up, ones that I'm a personal part of. So please share those in chat. Polina, are there any that are coming in?
Not yet. But I have a question from Carrie Cooper that I would like to say out loud. Does iSpring ever have in-person workshops on how to use the various features available? Maybe at AS2D, e-learning conferences, etc. We would travel to a conference to attend in-person sessions. So I would like to mention that at DevLearn, which is going to be next week, we are providing 2 sessions about what you get with iSpring out of the box. Is that correct, Michael?
Right. I believe one's on TalkMaster and the other one is on Quizmaker.
Right. And I mean, your session that you're going to do at the stage.
Oh, right, out of the box, yes.
Yes.
How to create more interactive content right out of the box with, whatever iSpring has without getting anything extra. So.
Right. And the other session is going to be presented by our client, Michael Sarantala, and he will be talking about his experience of how they turned boring PowerPoint presentations into very interactive content. He will also be doing 2 sessions at our booth on triggers and also pop-up animations, I think. So we're doing these things once in a while at the conferences. So maybe this is where you can get the personal workshop on iSpring. That's what I would say.
Right. And I'm, again, maybe speaking out of turn, but maybe if anyone, the participants, have suggestions on conferences they like, maybe they can send them to you. We can discuss them. But as Polina mentioned, certainly we have a physical presence available. And again, just want to push that home. Celebrating next week at DevLearn, we'll be there. So feel free to come out and see us there.
Okay, and going back to your poll question, we have some comments. So Alan says that he uses Shutterstock for icons. And then Angela also says that she uses eLearning Brothers for a lot of free services.
That's fantastic. So, and that's great. And those are great resources as well. And for those of you that don't know, Shutterstock is a content library where you can get photos, videos, icons. And eLearning Brothers has a succinct gallery and library very similarly that includes humans and some other things as well. So be sure to check out those. And as well as I mentioned earlier, the content library available in iSpring, which has a lot of great of the similar resources. Again, the icons, the templates, the humans, and other ones, some of which are available to use in the TalkMaster simulation maker that have the emotional settings that you can set inside TalkMaster. Very good.
Right, and then Patty goes to eLearning Heroes. And then
right, that's another great website.
Right, and then also Holly has shared a link, and then she says it's one for design basics.
Very good. Yeah, and that's one thing we really need to do. Remember that as we continue to flex our design and development muscles, it's always good to go back in and understand the basics because, as you all know, many of you that have been doing this for any length of time, things change, standards change, ideas change, and as we have more of this information, it's always good to go back and cover the basics. So thank you for sharing that.
Okay, and then also Ron says, I have found image search using the advanced function to look for Creative Commons. Fair use and non-copyright photos is helpful. I believe we
It
need to
is.
protect people's work where when possible.
I agree. So that's one thing that we didn't necessarily delve deeply into. I certainly think that that's a great resource. So, and I believe that this person's talking about the Google search for imagery, where you can go in and set ones available for reuse. Even those, as this person alluded to, you have to make sure that you actually look at the attribution that's needed. Creative Commons and resources and rights and image rights and intellectual properties is a whole other almost entire webinar series on its own. I encourage you to go out and look at each of the rights and what Creative Commons means, what you can use if there's attributions needed, and look into that because it is very important that we make sure we protect those rights of the people making those assets. So I appreciate that person bringing up the point. Thank you.
Right, and also Johan asks, any plans to run the workshop series again? So as I mentioned at the very
Right,
beginning
and
of
so go ahead, you cut out a little bit.
yeah, so the question is, any plans to run the workshop series again? And as I mentioned previously at the beginning of our webinar, yes, we are definitely going to do it again. We are going to rethink maybe the format and the number of the webinars, and probably we will be doing it sometime next year.
That's fantastic to hear. So very exciting. So, and also, and thank you for the person that asked that. So that also shows me that there's some interest in this webinar and the series and the content. So very cool. Thank you very much. So let's sum up and then we'll get right into the QA. Go ahead, Paulina.
Yes, I just wanted to mention really quickly a couple of other resources. So Tom says that they use Graphics Factory for images. Holly says that they use Free Pick is great and has a PowerPoint add-in. And then Alan says Unsplash, beautiful free images.
Mm-hmm. That's very good. And so that's a good point about the PowerPoint plugin. I'll go ahead and exit out of my slide. You see I use the Picket plugin. Where's my mouse? Oh, here's my mouse. And so I use that. And again, as you use it, and I won't go in and search for any particular one, you see that it pulls up. And again, it's available as a third-party plugin for PowerPoint. So it takes a moment to load. But in a similar vein, there's also one available called Open Pixels, and I'll click on that one so you can kind of see it. In both of these, as you begin searching for your own imagery, if needed, make sure that you look at the attribution in what's available. If they are Creative Commons, which most are, just make sure that you have seen that. So make sure that you're paying attention to that. All right, so let's get back into it. I'll sum up. So we took a look at the large view of what all the webinars have been. We took a really quick snapshot of each and every week, and I went through that very quickly. And then we took a look at some really great ones created in iSpring and why I like them. Again, many of them were based on visual aspects, whether it was transitions, animations. A lot of them were examples of branching, and some even used TalkMaster specifically. So look at these ways as you continue to create your content and how to make them more viable for not only the content itself, but for the learner and how it fits on their preferences and their druthers. So we provided a few links, and you as well provided some links and informational resources. So thank you for that, as well as some professional groups you can consider going to and or attending their conferences or hooking up with in order to get more information. So now, since we're on a good roll of people contributing information, let's continue that with a Q&A session. Is there anything anyone would like to discuss, or are there any questions that have come in, Paulina?
Sure, there is a question from Tom. Has anyone, and I think it's addressed to all of our attendees and to you, Michael, has anyone had any experience with or see value in hiding Easter eggs in their presentations?
there's always a value for Easter eggs. So I would encourage everyone to comment on that. So again, remember Easter eggs are anything that someone can do, a learner can do, or click or interact with that provides some special, sort of hidden gem or Easter egg. So that's a great question. I don't often include Easter eggs in my creation. If I do actual coding sometimes, be it JavaScript or jQuery or HTML or other, I sometimes include, Easter eggs for that. For the people that look in the code, they'll see it. So that's very funny. Thank you for sharing that.
All right, and we do have a couple of other questions. Just a second. So Michelle asks, is it possible to navigate to a previous question/slide like a back button in a published quiz?
I believe so, and we can go into the quiz, but
I
go
think
ahead.
as long as you make the question list available, that's easy to navigate.
Right,
In the list
and
of
remember,
questions.
mhm. And depending on the answer itself, and I know that this person simply asked about a back button, but remember you can also have that go to a particular slide if need be in the quiz creator. Again, if you can be very succinct about it, but I believe so.
Okay, and then the next question is from Mary. Can Talkmaster be used as a questionnaire to give our customers to help them select a course in our training library? We would need to collect their name, company, and email. Then it must send the results to us. Does it do these things?
Well, and I'll just kind of speak here, Paulina, and you can jump in if need be. So the short answer is not exactly. So Talkmaster isn't necessarily to made, from what I can see, and we'll have to double check the settings here in a minute. But the one way you could do is create a quiz and have the email and stuff, but you won't necessarily have the Talkmaster choices that they've chosen because again, it's based on branching. So Paulina, is that kind of what you track as well?
So it is if you put, I believe if you put Talkmaster on the slide, it's possible to collect the information. And also, some people are using our Talkmaster for troubleshooting. So it is possible to set this dialect tree in order to help select a course on the training library. I think, yeah, it's
Right, okay.
possible.
Very good. Yeah, it just takes some experimentation inside the settings of
Right.
Talkmaster. So
Yes, and going back to the question about Quizmaker, Holly says that's in the quiz settings. So yes,
right.
it's also available.
Most things are. So
Right, right.
it's in the settings. So.
Okay. Moving on. Can I use iSpring to convert an interactive PDF presentation with
Hmm.
bookmark table of contents into a SCORM format so it can be uploaded to an LMS?
So
I
go ahead. I'll provide a brief answer and then jump in here, Paulina. So my initial answer is it's not just a one-click process. So what you kind of described there to me sounds like something that would take not a lot of work, but would take some work. Because you would have to create that content or copy and paste in PDF or image form, slide by slide, as well as the bookmarks. Now, of course, you can package it using iSpring for SCORM, but it's not just an import PDF type of example. Is that what you say as well, Paulina, or have I misinterpreted that?
no. I actually completely agree with you.
So it's quite doable, but again, it takes some work, and it takes again, it's not just to import PDF and publish. Two steps. It's you have to go in slide by slide and recreate that look and feel, and or create those bookmarks, and then of course you can publish anything you need to. More or less speaking to the SCORM compliant. So it's doable. It's just a little difficult. So.
Right. And then the next question is from Ashley. Do you have any tricks for when the slides have audio? When you click back to a slide previously seen, the audio doesn't play again. Our workaround is that we have blank slides in front of every slide, and the back button actually goes to the blank slide, and then it automatically navigates forward in order to play the slide from the beginning again? Do you have any idea on that, Michael?
Well, honestly, I would have to experiment a little, and so I understand what this person is saying, but let me just, and I'll throw this on my slide. I'll find an audio file. I don't know what this is, but let's put it here. So, depending on how you've added your audio, and again, this is me adding it via PowerPoint. There again, we could also include it here. But it sounds like you have added it that way within the iSpring tools themselves. So experiment with both adding it here, which includes making sure that you've managed the narration itself and the timings, but also make sure that you have looked, and if that has, on the back, if it's recreating that. I'll close this here in a moment. Make sure that as you come back in, and I think you can do it here as well, but let me focus on what I'm saying first. Is that we make sure that the triggers for this are not automatic, that it has a specific format for each slide, and that would be in the playback settings here. So instead of playing on click, it would only play on, automatically with each slide, or if you didn't, it would be a trigger as you go back. So it takes a little bit experimentation, and again, I'm not sure if you have tried the manage narration, wherein you go in and look slide by slide and make sure. You can also make it based on an internal trigger, say each of these animated, and I had that set up in the animation setting, which I don't obviously, but you could also, I believe, adjust that and sync it to, say, your first one. And again, I think your blank slide workaround is probably a pretty decent one, but consider doing this as well, experimenting whether this will work mixed with a combination of animations inside PowerPoint. So any other thoughts on that, Paulina?
No, not of what I would think of. But actually, you are welcome to send your question to our support team, support@ispringsolutions.com, and one of our specialists will get back to you shortly with any possible information.
Very good.
All right, so at this point, we need to wrap up because we spent the good quality 1 hour on this webinar, revising what we've learned during this session, and also thinking of what is available regarding the content creation and what kind of content is possible to create with iSpring. And Fern says, many thanks to Michael for his wonderful warm manner and for sharing his breadth and depth of knowledge, and thanks to Paulina for all the support, and thanks to you, Fern, for being I think you have been with us at every single webinar, so thank you very much for participating. And again, guys, I will be sharing the link to our main blog post. Please share what you think about our webinar series. What do you think we should improve in it? What kind of information you would like to see more of? What information you didn't find that useful, so that our next webinar series is even better, so that we can prepare for it even better, so that we can provide even greater content to you guys, and we just want you to feel supported and that you are not all by yourself with iSpring and in e-learning. So thanks to all of you who has been with us through the whole series, who has just joined us for this webinar. All the webinars are available at the links that I have just shared in the chat section. You guys are welcome to go there, share your comments, and watch all the webinar replays and read, because for some of the webinars, by the way, the more detailed articles are available with all your suggestions that you've been sharing in the question box, which I think is a great resource to start with. So yes, and thanks. Thank you very, very, very much, Michael, for just leading this webinar series. We all appreciate it very, very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paulina, and thank you to iSpring for having me. This has been fantastic. I appreciate everyone, and I appreciate all the participants, as we've said. Thank you for hanging in there with us and joining each and every week.
Right. So at this point, I would like to wish all of you guys a wonderful day. And again, I will see you at our next webinar, which will be held on November 1st. And we will be speaking with one of our clients, Mark Proctor. He's from higher education, and he will be talking about the benefits that he found of using iSpring for higher ed in his university. So, and also we will be announcing our three winners that will get an online consultation with Michael. All right, so bye bye everyone and have a wonderful day.
Bye.